Hello, everyone. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You're listening to the Business Showcase. This is the late lunch hour showcase, so we are so glad to have you here with us. Those of you that don't know me, I am Cece Shatz. I'm the doyen of relationship building. And what I really do is help take you from one of those darkest times in your life and move you through to really living your best life. And how do we do that? We do that by connecting you with some pretty awesome individuals like we're going to do today on the Business Showcase. So I am so pleased to be able to be here with you today. Just want to do a little homework. If you want to reach me, all you have to do is contact Going Solo Network at gmail.com. That's my email. You can email at any time. And then, of course, you can find all of our wonderful shows right here on the Going Solo Media network. So you can just go to goingsolomedia.com and you'll find all of our wonderful information right there for you. So let's get busy because we got a lot going on today, and I want to make sure that I bring our guests right up here with us as quickly as we possibly can. So let's bring them up. Hello there.
Hello there.
Perez. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Cece, for having me.
We are so glad to have you. You know, Nathan, I just want to be able to share with everyone about you. You are an award-winning author. You're a national speaker, an executive, in executive career, job search coach. You do a lot, but you have also established a 20-minute networking meeting. And so I want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Yes. When I looked at your information, I thought, wow, we've got to have you on because networking is so important to all businesses, any type of business that you have. And it's also, it can be fun, can't it? It can be a lot of fun meeting people, learning about people, going through things like that. So tell us a little bit about your journey, where, how you started getting into more and more helping people in their careers with business and being an executive and that type of thing. And then also the networking, knowing that we need to home in on our networking skills.
Right. Okay. So once upon a time, long time ago, I trained as a professional actor. This was in college. I graduated with a BFA Theater Arts. And then I went out there. My first market was New York City. I was there for about a decade. And before getting out of school, something that was drilled into us was networking. You got to network. And this is the business where, you have to know the people and so forth and so on. We all would hear this, everybody. And so I got to New York and I didn't know how to do that. And so I just kind of kept going on. At the same time, what was happening is, if you've ever heard, artists sometimes have to have a second job in order to survive. Well, that was me through a lot of that. And through some networking, I hadn't realized that's what had happened at the time, but I ended up developing a second career at the same time, a professional career. And it all started with a temp job down on Wall Street, where I ended up at Goldman Sachs of all places. So as time kind of went on, I developed a whole professional skill set along with my theatrical side. And then eventually when I got out of the business and I took on writing full time, I got into the retained executive search industry. If you're not familiar with that industry, it's firms like that are hired by other companies to find new executive leaders for their own organization. Right. So when a company needs like a new VP of HR or an SVP of marketing, a CEO, those roles are typically filled like one of two ways. That's usually networking in these kinds of firms. I was a little different in the industry, though, because I wasn't an executive recruiter, or sometimes you hear the term headhunter. I was actually the first step of the whole process. So I was the person going and finding the candidates for the recruiters to go and recruit. So networking played a major role in that as well. And then as time went on, I eventually left that industry. So if that industry was all about trying to find new executives for companies, I changed to going and helping executives find their next role in companies. And right in that time with one of the firms I met, who is my co-author, Marcia Ballinger, and she had a few different ideas. She knew I had a writing background, and this networking thing popped up, and I thought, oh my gosh, yes, we got to do this. That's been in my entire career in the arts. And she was, in the recruitment field where networking, as I already explained, is really, really important. And we decided this has got to be the one. So we wrote that first book. It was for executives. And then in time, I wrote 3 more around it for other audiences. One of them is for grads or anybody who goes back for their masters, one for veterans, and then one for anybody who is not any of those. So then as all that happened, all of my professional skills, both on the theatrical side and then the search side, kind of married together. And these days, I coach executives. I'm a professional speaker in the career space.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Years ago, I was a headhunter.
Is that right?
I did do that. And I loved it because, you got to meet people in different, different employments, different things like that. And so, yeah, I really did enjoy it. But that was years ago. But it is valuable, networking and really making friends and associates and things like that. It's very, very important.
Right. Critically important, in the recruitment space, for anybody who's out there and listening, in the way of career development and job search. Even recruiters and hiring people use their network. We rely on people, all of us. It doesn't matter the industry. We rely on people for that relationship building.
You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm joking here. I do apologize for that.
No problem.
Yeah. Here you're on camera. Things happen.
Live.
Live. Well, let's ask you, what is networking really? If somebody, there's so many different terms and such, regarding networking. So if you were going to describe networking to someone, if someone's going out and they haven't actually maybe done networking, or maybe they're not doing networking properly or whatever. So let's describe what networking is.
Yeah. Okay. First, probably how I'll start is by saying what networking isn't. Networking isn't about being all salesy, and it's not about being all, slick and smooth, and it's not about name dropping or all those things. Really, what networking is just about information, the obtainment of information and the exchange of information. There might be different purposes or outcomes when it comes to networking, but still, from the beginning of the meeting to the end of the meeting, all that's really happening is you're exchanging information. And really, it's as simple as that. And when you think about it that way, every discussion that you ever have, and every discussion is just an exchange of information, really is networking. But if you're going to be a little more formal about it, then maybe you would call it networking, and maybe you'd have very specific questions or things that you want to cover, but still, it's just information exchange. And one more thing that it just occurs to me, I think sometimes what we do is we associate behaviors with the word networking. Networking has sort of this negative connotation to it, right? But what we're really doing is we're pinning behaviors on that word, and a lot of people avoid it as a result. But really, all it is what I said. It's just information exchange and discussions.
Right. So often people will go to like a networking meeting, but they'll be so focused on their own agenda versus just meeting someone. And I've always thought that I think it's fun to meet people, find out what they do, because you never know where your life's going to take you. And then you'll remember, oh, yeah, I met such and such. He does this or whatever. And you just never know how that person can lead you to someone else or could do something else for you. And they may not be the person that you need in your life right now, but you never know down the road how they're going to be.
You never know. It's a much. In fact, I just published a LinkedIn article that's entitled something like "It's a much smaller world than you think," in which someone who is in one of my online boot camps happened to see on a slide that I was a swimmer growing up, a competitive swimmer, and she's like, my family, we're a group of swimmers, and I was like, well, get out of here. It's kind of a small world. And she said, my husband also works with professional swimmers who used to be Olympians and athletes. And I was like, wow, get out of here, really? So I said, let me tell you a funny story. I had the opportunity to do a movie out in Bulgaria with a swimmer. And the story was simply that he sat down, asked me about my times and all these different things. And I was a pretty good swimmer. And he says to me, well, I say, so what was your event? And he tells me his times. And I was like, well, wait a minute. That's like world record, man. Are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I know. I broke it. Well, it turned out to be an Olympian gold medalist in time shortly before that I actually knew about. And wouldn't you know, 20 years later, because the story I'm telling you, this all happened about 3 weeks ago, that person is really good friends with that Olympian. And it just shrunk the world all over again some 20 years later. And, and now he and I are back in touch. You just never know. The world is small and we have so much overlap. But you can't know, right, until you start having the discussions with people and you mention these things.
Yeah, you're absolutely true with that. So let's talk about the actual meeting itself. So how long does a networking meeting really have to be?
20 minutes tops. Here's the thing. When it comes to networking, a lot of folks believe that, it's got to be an hour. It's got to be an hour long. And the thing is about a meeting, an hour, people are kind of reluctant to carry a networking meeting because of time. But when you kind of distill everything that you're going to talk about in that hour, you realize that it only takes about 20 minutes. And we say in the books too, this is not a hard and fast rule. A networking meeting can be longer. A networking meeting can be shorter. But really what you're trying to do is use time efficiently and be productive and productive about it, and reciprocal. But we'll kind of come to that. So it only takes about 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's amazing, because a lot of people think that it'll take a long time. They don't really want to go to a networking meeting or something like that because they think it's going to take, it's going to take much longer than that. So how do you prioritize your networking contacts? That's something that's always been a little bit difficult. How do you kind of sort that out to where you're really being more effective with that?
Right. Well, first, let's establish, right? And I just kind of said this. You can network with anyone. You don't know where your information is going to come from. Even if it's not the information that you're looking for, it can give you an idea. So anyone. But if you're going to be real strategic about it and you want to prioritize people, you want to start with those that you know best and who know you best. Because it's going to be a lot easier to obtain and get that information because they have more of your story. And then you kind of just look at it as going rings out, right? So let's just say that you want to start with friends. There's one. And then you can start with family. And then from there, you could work with current peers or colleagues. And then from there, former peers and colleagues, and then keep going out. And then the furthest ring would be complete strangers. But keeping in mind, starting with that first ring, you can go directly out to complete strangers through those people that are closest to you. So it would probably go in that order only because you'd be a lot more efficient. You'd probably meet a lot more people, like strangers, through the people that you are more familiar with and who are familiar with you. But it's a case by case. You can do it any way you want, but that would be the most strategic way to go about it.
Yeah, it makes sense too. And, we never think about, our family or friends or whatever, who they might know to be able to, to be able to do that, to, be able to give you maybe a heads up on some business and things like that. So what is the difference between an informative interview and a networking meeting? That's a very good question.
Yeah, well, so great. Yeah, let's discern this because it really makes a difference to people when you meet with them. So like an informational meeting is a little more narrow and a lot more deep. So if you and I, for instance, if I were to send you an email and I say, hey, Cece, can we talk a little bit about podcasting? I'd like to know these things about podcasting, the production, guests, whatever it may be, just kind of narrow and deep. But when you're in a networking meeting, you're hoping to actually cover much more ground. So there's more breadth to it. Maybe not as much depth. Maybe you go into a little bit of depth on one or two particular topics. But what you're hoping to do is actually gather a lot of different kind of information that informs whatever reason that you're networking for.
Right. And so you want to keep that, because I've had it where individuals will come up to me and they just home in and want to know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they kind of take up the time, because they really want to educate themselves versus, going out and meeting a lot of people. So, I think that's important for us to keep that in mind, because when we're networking, that's not really how to network. You don't want to go up and just pick somebody's brain. You'll maybe ask if you could meet with them at another time to kind of,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
do that at a networking meeting. So, yeah.
Yeah. An informational, I just kind of said this, but an informational meeting is more about, let's just say in the career context or business development, whatever it may be. It's just very centered and you want a lot of information on a certain kind of thing. So again, if I were to use the podcasting example, we would talk about all things podcasting. Whereas if you're networking to inform yourself around podcasting in a bigger way, you would maybe ask a little bit about marketing, ask about what it is in general, ask what it is about guests, but not so deep. You're just trying to cover more ground.
Right. And if you really feel like you need that information for your business, again, you can ask the individual, can we meet off off site? Can we get together for coffee or whatever later on and talk about some of these things? And most people in their networking realm, most people in business will really want to help. They want to help you because that's really how it works. Is like we all help each other, right? But when you're in but if you're in the networking arena where you're actually doing the networking meeting, what you want to do is if you have to ask a question, if something triggers you and you want to ask you could ask something lighter where they can kind of respond, but not go into such depth over it, not take all of their time to answer that one thing. But
Right.
it will also give you an idea of whether that's a person that you think you might want to, connect with further. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd like to go back to an earlier point that you made. By nature, people want to help. It doesn't really matter the business or the industry. By nature, people want to help, but people tend to be reluctant when time isn't used well, which kind of circles to what you were just saying. It is about being organized and wanting to ask very specific things.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about business cards? Do you think that you should, on a networking meeting, somebody told me this one time, they had you should always have like a, name tag on with your information on, and then always have business cards. So you want to give us some tips on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you always have business cards. I'll come back to that. But going back to that name thing, any place that you ever go where they're offering name tags or ask you to wear one, wear it. You want to wear a name tag. It's one of the big icebreakers. We already know your first name and it's sitting there. And by the way, a tip for you, if you didn't know it, you want to wear your name tag on your left side. Okay, is that right? No, on your right side. And the reason why is when you shake hands, I'm looking at myself and my video is actually mirrored.
Right.
The other side.
That's
right, because your hand leads right over to that name tag. Exactly. And then business cards. Something that I'm asked pretty frequently is, Nathan, we're in the digital age. And do people really even use business cards? Yes, they do. Do they keep them very long after you give them away? Maybe not, but they're very important because they have that information. So you always want to have it, or at least have it available. People exchange. It doesn't matter where you go, what you do. The business cards are still important. Maybe that business cards ends up digital pretty quickly and the card gets tossed out, but you always want to have it.
Yeah.
Your phone number, your email, and your LinkedIn is what I would say too, that they should have on there.
Yeah. And that's a good point to bring up about your LinkedIn account, because I'm surprised at how many business people do not have a LinkedIn account, or they don't use their LinkedIn account, and so can you give us any tips on that?
Yeah, well, first looking at LinkedIn and what it is, it's one giant, if you're on the recruiting and hiring side, it's one giant database, candidate database. If you're on the business development and sales side, it's one giant database of potential clients. Essentially, everyone has gotten around to understanding that it's like one giant watering hole. Everyone is there. No matter what angle you're coming at, everyone is there. So if you want to grow your business, if you want to develop your career, you're looking for a job, whatever it is, you can count on the fact that anybody that you want to contact that's in the business world, they're also there. Plus, it tends to be one of the first places that people look when they want to do research on you or your business. They'll go over to the LinkedIn page, right? Because when we're on LinkedIn, you can click on a person's profile and read about them, but you can also click on the company, pop over there and learn more about the company without ever leaving the same application. So it's super, super important to have one for anybody who's in business.
Mm-hmm. And that's almost, to me, it's almost like a digital online networking, so because you do learn a lot about it, and you can send messages and things like that. So it's a nice platform for people. And those that are out there looking for a job or whatever, it's good to have your information on there so people can find you. You want to be found.
To that end, right? If we're out there looking for a job, well, when you have a LinkedIn profile, anybody out there who might be looking for someone like you has a place to find you. It's like a professional holding place right there on the internet, and that's where everybody goes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, I tell you, Nathan, we're going to have to take a quick break. So, everyone, we have Nathan Perez here with us. We're talking about the 20-minute network meeting, and he's written 4 books. So, there's got to be a book out there that you can definitely relate to. And so, we're going to put up his website here. So, you guys have his website, and it's nathanperez.com. Everything is pretty much about there. You can go to his About page and find out all of his information. So, everything's there for you. You're a wonderful coach. I can tell by how generous you are, with
Oh,
regards
thank you.
to, offering out information, connecting with people, things like that. So again, everyone, he is an award-winning author. He's a national speaker. He's an executive career and job search coach. So we definitely want to, connect with him. So his email, his website again is nathanperez.com. So make sure you definitely contact with him. So it's Nathan, Nathana, his middle initial, Perez, Perez.com. So we're going to go take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this 20-minute networking meeting. And I can't wait. Thank you, Nathan, very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
So we're just going to hang here for just 1 minute so we get it all set up. Hello, everyone. We're back here on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are the #1 internet singles talk network. We're on the Business Showcase here today. I am Cece Shatz, your host, and we have a wonderful guest here with us today, Nathan Perez, and we're talking about the 20-minute networking meeting. The first part of the show, we talked about networking, trying to understand what networking is about. Sometimes I wonder if we network, Nathan, all the time, right? All our life we network because we're introducing ourselves to people, we're understanding about people, we're relating to individuals, and so networking should be something that's easy, isn't it? But some people are very shy. So what happens to those when we go into a networking meeting?
Right. Okay. If you are shy or you are introverted, let me tell you right now, you're not alone. I am a hardwired, if you saw it pop on the screen, a hardwired introvert. Now, what defines an extrovert is somebody who recharges, they get all their energy when they're around big groups of people. And by contrast, what defines an introvert is someone who recharges or gets their energy when they've had a sufficient amount of time to be able to self-reflect. Right. So for those of you that are introverts, you understand what that means. You might be more of a reader. You might be more of an observer. But here's the thing, and this is everything that we talked about at the top of this show, which is this networking thing. First of all, it's just a skill. It's a skill that anybody can learn. Plus, we're doing it all the time. When you shake someone's hand and when you exchange a little bit of information, and it can be as simple as hey, how's your morning been this morning? Or what did you do? And then you have that information exchanged. Well, if we had the discussion today and we see each other again tomorrow and I say, hey, how did the rest of the day go? You're picking up where you left off, information exchange, and that is networking. You do that time after time after time. And what are you doing? But you're developing a relationship. And relationship building is a cornerstone to networking. So every single discussion that you ever have out there in the world or online or whatever it is, however formal or informal, really is the networking, because you're just exchanging the information.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really makes it, when you look at it like that, in that context, it makes it so much easier, right? Because I know when I first started networking, first in business and stuff, especially when I was doing the headhunting, right? I had to go into a lot of things, and I would like, okay, gut it up, do it, you can do it. And I had to do all this self-talk to myself to get myself going in it. But then I realized they're all just like I am, they want to meet me as much as I would like to meet them. So stop sweating it,
That's exactly it. Through my 20 years in the arts, it was always so nerve-wracking, I got to, is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? But now in retrospect, I look back and it's really all the same. Plus, to your point, like when you go to a networking event, if you've ever felt like, oh man, how am I going to do this? What am I going to say? What I'm going to do? Take a look around the room and you will see that there are a lot of other people who are feeling the same way, if not everybody. And here's the tip, right? If you were to go and start the conversation, I can almost guarantee that you're going to see a look of relief on that person's face, because they're there to network as well, yet they're not doing it because of the same fears. And yet you've been the person to break the ice, and people will open right up, just as we would if someone were to come up to us and introduce themselves to us and begin a conversation. So we're in the perfect position to be able to understand how other people feel. And if you just ever want to make the first move, it will make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, you're so right. Now what I try to do is I look around, and if I see somebody that I think might be a little nervous doing something, I'll go up and talk to them, because I totally get it. I get exactly what they were
Me
thinking.
too.
Yeah, so absolutely. And then I know that what I used to do too is, like, I think that when you go, let's talk about this for a minute. When you go to some of these networking meetings, there's alcohol, right? And so what are your thoughts about drinking and doing this type of thing, to do, meeting people?
Good question. First of all, keep your drink in your left hand if you use your right hand to shake, because sometimes our drinks kind of sweat and you don't want that palm to be all wet. But here's the thing, it's great to enjoy a cocktail. So many networking events usually involve alcohol, but know your limit. And if you know your limit, stay 2 drinks away from that. Because while it can feel like a little bit of liquid courage that you're drinking, and it's going to kind of loosen you up a little bit, sometimes it can cross a line. And if you've ever had the experience of just like losing a thought for a moment or losing track or whatever else, then it backfires. So just be careful with it. How it's said, in moderation.
I totally agree with that. I used to just take, and I haven't gone in since the pandemic, and we'll talk about that. But I would just take ginger ale, and I would tell the bartender, make it look like it's a drink, And so I would have that. And I remember one of my friends saying, "You're drinking a lot. You better stop." And then I said, "It's ginger ale." Because I wanted it to look like it was drink, because I didn't want to feel out of place. Now I'm over that. But yeah, there for a while I felt like that. So I do know and understand how networking can be, kind of difficult for people. Yeah, I totally get that. I totally understand that. So let's talk a little bit about COVID. So COVID has changed networking tremendously. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are you seeing in today's world?
Yeah, so it has changed tremendously. But here's the thing, is that it's changed for the better. Networking is better than it has ever been in the past. And there's 2 primary reasons for it. First is the familiarity of the tech, and then there's pandemic boredom. I'll come back to the pandemic boredom, but the familiarity of the tech, right, is that a year ago about this time, we were suddenly kind of shoved into having to use the tech. Like, I had been using video for a while to do networking meetings, but people were a little reluctant to do it. No, I'll do a phone call instead. But then, bam, a year ago, we've had no choice. And this is also on the personal side, because we all had to kind of stay in and whatever else, and families had to stay together. So these days, a year later, most people are familiar with the platforms. It's kind of funny because a year ago, people didn't really know networking platforms, and now everyone knows like 6. So there's a familiarity with the technology. But then we got pandemic boredom. The truth is we've not been able to socialize in the same way that we've been able to, whether that's restaurants or bars or even the workplace. And what's happened is we've all had to stay home, and we get a little, some cabin fever. We get a little stir crazy. And because we don't have the commutes and we don't have all these other things that take our time that have to do with the day job, and we've got the convenience and now the familiarity with the tech, it becomes so much easier to network for both sides of the table. So even complete strangers at this point, and I've listened to this all year long now, people are willing to take a networking meeting because they can do it at any time that they want to from home, right? It's all convenient. And we've been bored. We want to actually socialize. So I have seen this year much more networking than I've seen in the past because of that, the boredom and the tech.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's nice to be able to do it in your own home, and you're not having to drive out somewhere, and so. For
sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to add to that, Cece, actually. Here's the thing is that we, at some point, we're going to kind of come back to some sort of normal as far as being, social and so forth. But here's the thing, the tech and everything we're doing now is only going to explode. If you've already been hearing about 5G, that was turned on, and it was turned on globally. In fact, they're starting to talk about 6G. But the thing is about 5G is that it is 25 times faster than the technology that we have right now. Mm-hmm. So what this means is everything is going to be faster. So it's going to be very commonplace where you start seeing people more than we are now walk around and doing video. So networking and relationship building and meetings and so forth over the tech, that's going to grow exponentially. So if you're still kind of shying away from this video thing, don't worry about it. If you're already getting used to it, great, get used to it some more because it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I know a lot of things have turned towards, the internet, and which, I've been on the internet for such a long time now. I kind of take it for granted, and you got everybody going crazy on it, but I love it. I think it's great being able to sit at home and talk with a bunch of people on networking meetings and things like that. It's very interesting, and they're really excited about connecting because, like you said, they're bored and they want to do something different. And we all need to help each other a little bit, I think, along the way, don't we? And
absolutely.
Everything's going on, especially with the COVID. We want to, try to uplift people and be able to, help them through this. So it's great.
I'm watching that change too. Behaviors are already changing. All this stuff, this crazy stuff that's been going on. Well, we've all felt it. And when I say all, I really mean the globe, the entire planet. We're all in the same position together. And the way that we listen to each other and communicate with one another, that's evolving big time. But the wonderful thing about it is like I said earlier, by nature, we want to help one another. So we can expect this amazing change to change all of us in time to come. People are going to become more helpful.
Yeah.
Jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that once we've kind of stepped back from the fear of everything that was happening to us, because anytime you get changes, there's a fear and a shift in the changes, that we're experiencing. Yeah. Once we get over that, I think people are going to get back to being who they really are, very kind and considerate and helping other people. So
for sure.
We're seeing it more and more now. So hallelujah for that. But let me ask you, I want to focus a little bit now because we're coming down to the wire here, but I want to focus a little bit on your 4 different books. Now you said you wrote them for, different like genres, so to speak. So what would make them that someone would want to read them? Like you said, the one was for veterans. What would encourage veterans to buy this type of book?
Right. Okay, sure. So first, let me establish here that every single book is practically the same. The examples are in the same spot. The stories are in the same spot. Everything is laid out the same. The books are just written in context for each different readership. And the first one, the very first one that was published was for executives. And then there's a graduate. So anybody who's coming out of school or goes back for their master's, all the stories and all those things that are in there are written in context for them and how to use the language from, say, their educational experience to talk about it in a professional context. And then you have veterans. So we all know that networking is so important to job search and career development and basically anything else. But veterans in particular, when they come into the civilian world, that's a whole different story for them. The culture is very, very different. And getting to know what you and I are talking about and a lot of people are familiar with tends to be brand new for a lot of veterans. So veterans would want to grab something like this to understand how to run a civilian meeting in like a professional context in the way that you and I are discussing it. And then the fourth book is it's called the Professional Edition, which addresses anybody who is not those other three, not an executive, not a grad, not a veteran. So if you're a lawyer, if you're a derrickman, in the oil field, if you are a doctor, anybody else. But again, laid out the same, just different examples and written for those different readerships. I found, as a reader myself and as a writer that it's kind of nice to be able to read something that speaks directly to you, which is the purpose for all those different editions.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because it is true. And I love the grad one because, gosh, they're coming out of, an environment where they're trying to really grow. And so they want to be able to really grasp a hold of that. And so, and then, of course, the veterans, you're so right with, coming out home and trying to figure out how to make everything work. And so networking is so important. It truly is important. And it's something that we've got in our pocket, right? I think it's a special tool that we have networking. And so we
Yeah.
can use it to our advantage. People don't use it to their advantage, do they?
No. And once you do, it changes everything because all you're doing now is being intentional about the discussions that you typically have day to day to day. But when you're intentional and you're hoping to get something out of it, which is information, right? There's outcomes and stuff, but right now you're just trying to get information. Your world opens up. Networking is a shortcut to everything. So for instance, right, if we're going to have, if I'm trying to learn something in particular and I read a lot of books, I do a lot of studying and I read blog posts and I listen to podcasts and what I'm doing is kind of piecemealing together what it is I'm trying to figure out. But when you meet with an individual, that's a shortcut. You're meeting with someone who can give you direct answers, specific answers to specific things that you're looking for. And when you do that, it is hop, skip, and jump. It is just one shortcut after another. And what I've watched this for 10 years. What happens is you begin to see this path begin to lay out before you, but you're the one that's responsible for building that path by what you're learning from each individual and not necessarily by books and so forth and piecemealing it together. Mm-hmm. Super important.
Great information. Again, let's share your website, which is Nathan A. Perez. It's NATHANAPEREZ.com. So everyone, please, we want you to go there. All of his books and everything are on there. All the information on the coaching is there. If you feel like you're kind of needing a little bit more help, he's there for you. And he also helps with the job search, job search coach. So sometimes we need some direction. Maybe we're creating a shift in our lives and deciding we want to do something a little bit different. And so, gearing up your job search, it's very crucial. And both you and I have been in the headhunting industry. And so we know what your resume should look like, how people read a resume. I used to get resumes that were like pages long and nobody's going to read that. And, it talks about like when they started to walk and all I'm just kidding. But what I mean, it's just so much stuff, but it's not geared towards the actual position that they're looking for. And so, mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a lot of things I think individuals could definitely use your services. So again, he's an executive career and job search coach. He's a national speaker. If you ever need a speaker, you can tell that he's a wonderful speaker and an award-winning author. And he's got 4 books. And they're all on the 20-minute networking meeting. And you can find them if you just Google that 20-minute networking meeting. You'll find them if you forget. But it's Nathan A. Perez. So
yeah, you'll also find them.
Pardon?
I was just going to say you'll also find them on Amazon, on Kindle, on iTunes, and there's an audiobook that's on the website. Sorry, keep going.
That's great. And that is awesome audio because that's all I listen to now is audiobooks because we're in such fast pace now, everything that we do. So yeah. So that's a great thing, and especially when you work out, you can listen to the book, you can listen to something good. That's something too that I think networking and business coaching and all of that is like, it's like we're a well, right? And we have to keep filling ourselves with good information, knowledgeable information. And so having a good book, an audio book to be able to listen to while you're working out, doing different things, that's really the way to
Right.
go. Yeah, keep
Right.
filling that well up.
Yeah.
So are there
The more there's in that well, the more there is to offer other people in discussion.
Absolutely. That is true. That is true. So now tell us any last minute information you want to give our listeners, any, closing thoughts that you're thinking.
I think we touched on the most important part of it, which is just understanding that networking is discussion. And so what I always say is when you're out there in the world, have a discussion with someone. You got to remember, and to kind of borrow from that last point that I just made, we are walking data banks of information and experiences. So if you've ever had a doubt that, I don't know what I have to offer, I don't know what I know, have faith. You've been on the planet this long, and every single thing that you've done and everything that you ever learned is something that you can offer people. So just have a discussion with people about anything. Hey, I really like your jacket. I have something that's kind of similar. Is it made of this, that, or the other? Just have a chat, and you'll realize that people will want to have the chat back with you. It's just that they kind of had probably the same sort of fear that you had before you began the discussion. So have faith, go network.
That's excellent information, and it's so valuable too. It truly is valuable, and I want to thank you so much, Nathan, for spending the time here with us today. It's tremendous to have you on. Again, we have Nathan A. Perez, and he is an award-winning author, national speaker, executive career and job search coach, and definitely reach out to him. His email again is nathanaperez.com. So we want to make sure that you guys get that information. But again, thank you so much. We love the 20-minute networking meeting. It's been great, and thank you for being a guest here today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Cece, for having me on the show.
Oh, it's great having you. Wow, this went by very quickly. So again, everyone, please reach out to Nathan Perez. He's the 20-minute networking meeting. You can find it on Amazon. There's 4 different books geared towards maybe what you're looking for. Again, he is an award-winning author, so the books are very good. It's a national speaker. He's a national speaker. And then reach out to him if you're looking to maybe kind of do something with regards to your career or job search. And you need someone in your corner. So he's definitely would be there for you. So again, you guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the Business Showcase. I hope you enjoyed your late lunch hour with me. I am Cece Shatz. And any information that you might need right there on our website, goingsolomedia.com. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.